Benjamin Netanyahu gave his long-awaited hyperbolic speech to Congress today, and he did exactly what we all knew he was going to do. He fear-mongered over the Iran negotiations. Let me give you some of his quotes here. He said, quote, "At a time when many hope that Iran will join the community of nations, Iran is busy gobbling up the nations." I find that hilariously ironic because, indeed, what did Netanyahu decide to do within the past few months or so? Annex more of the Palestinian territories. So talk to me again about gobbling up nations. I know that's something you know a lot about, Benjamin. Please, I'm very interested in hearing what you have to say about it. He also said, quote, "In this deadly Game of Thrones, there is no room for America or Israel." I don't even know what that means. Quote, "When it comes to Iran and ISIS, the enemy of your enemy is your enemy." Witty. Witty. Get it? Because ISIS is our enemy, but it's also Iran's enemy, and we shouldn't actually be happy that Iran is fighting ISIS. We should be, like, angry about that or something? Yeah, see, that doesn't make sense. Look, is Iran the enemy of the West? Well, that's pretty clear. But is ISIS a greater enemy of the West? Absolutely. I mean, the idea that, you know, in the fight between Iran and ISIS, that we don't sit on the side and actually hope for Iran to win, that's insanity. I mean, what, you really think there's a true equivalence between the Iranian government and ISIS? They're equal in every way. Now, I'm not saying one is good and one is bad, no. But there are different degrees of bad. And you're telling me you truly believe that ISIS is equally as bad as the Iranian government? Well, that makes absolutely no sense, and you know that makes no sense. All right, he also says, "You don't need intelligence agencies and secret information to know this. You can Google it." Oh, now that's fascinating, because what he's talking about, I think that's a reference to what we heard from the former Mossad chief recently, which is the Israeli intelligence organization. They said when Netanyahu gave his speech 2 years ago at the UN, talking about how Iran will have a bomb in a year, they said, no, absolute bullshit. There was a conversation between them and the government of South Africa where they said, actually, Netanyahu's totally wrong. That's not true at all. So his own intelligence agency was like, no, what you're saying is not true. So what does he do? He slips into this speech. You don't need the intelligence agencies. Fuck them, because they're not bending to my will when I make shit up. Just Google it. Well, we'll come back to the idea of Googling it in a second, and I'll give you some real information from the Google machine that I'm sure Netanyahu doesn't want you to hear. He also says, quote, "This deal doesn't block Iran's path to the bomb. It paves Iran's path to the bomb." Again, shamelessly made up. Quote, "This deal won't be a farewell to arms. It will be a farewell to arms control." Somebody's witty today. Again, man, he got us again. He said, "Iran can be, quote, weeks away from an arsenal of nuclear weapons." Can anybody believe this guy? I mean, the stuff he says is just patently absurd. You said 2 years ago that a year from then they would have a nuclear weapon. And they don't. And they're not even close to it. And they're not even trying to get it. As again, I'll get to more information on that in a second. But you've been lying every step of the way. For the past decade, you've been saying, in like 17 minutes, Iran is going to have a nuclear weapon. And every single time, you've been wrong. You are the boy who cried wolf. Now, here's my favorite part. Quote, "Iran's regime is not merely a Jewish problem any more than the Nazi regime was merely a Jewish problem." Here we go again. Anybody who Netanyahu doesn't like is a Nazi. And just like the story we covered from Fox News the other day, where Fox hosts were asking, is Obama anti-Semitic? Does he hate all Jews? We're just asking. We're not sure. We're just posing the question. So, I mean, what's your criteria? What's your standard? Somebody needs to bend 100% of the time to the will of Netanyahu in order to not be a Nazi. Is that what we're talking about here? Now, let me go ahead and give you the reality, which, of course, Netanyahu does not want you to hear about. He told us before you could just Google it. Well, I did just Google it, and it tells me the opposite of what you want me to know, or what you think the case is. So a report from the IAEA in 2014 said the following, quote, "The latest report from the United Nations nuclear watchdog shows that Iran is thus far following the terms of the interim deal signed between Tehran and the international community last fall, reducing, I don't want to gloss over that, stockpiles of enriched uranium and granting unprecedented access. According to the International Atomic Energy Agency, the IAEA, which has released quarterly reports on the status of Iran's nuclear program since 2003, Iran is holding up to the terms of the interim agreement signed off on last November. Under the Joint Plan of Action, Iran agreed to halt the process of uranium to 20% enrichment and convert its present stockpile of nuclear fuel enriched to that level into a form unable to be processed further. So, in other words, let me be crystal clear about what that means. All of the enriching of uranium that Iran is doing, it's for the energy grid for the people of Iran, which, by the way, they have a right under international law to enrich for that specific purpose. But see, according to Netanyahu, because he's crazy and he's a warmonger and he's a hawk, no, even if Iran even does that, we should attack and we should go after them and we should crack down and we shouldn't allow them in any way, shape, or form to enrich any uranium, even if it's proven that it's just for their energy grid. Doesn't matter. Even if it's clear, it's utterly clear, and the IAEA is telling us that they're not using this for the reason you think they're using it. This isn't for weapons. This isn't to fight you. This isn't for anything negative. It's for the power grid for their people. He goes, nope, not even that. Nope. If you allow it at all, you're paving a way for the bomb, even though you just said that you're not paving the way for the bomb. But I'll just say that you are, and I'll use this as an excuse to be a war hawk and to talk about how we should attack them. No, you have to understand, the bad guy in this situation is Netanyahu. He's the aggressor. I'm not happy saying that. Like, people always, say, oh, Kyle, blaming Israel and blaming America first. No, I'm not blaming anybody. I'm giving you the facts. To anybody who knows the history of the Western relationship with Iran, anybody who knows it understands that we are not the angel in this scenario. It's not as simple as we are pure good, they are pure evil. In fact, you can go back and look in 1953. Now the CIA even admits to this. In 1953, we overthrew a democratically elected leader in Iran, Mohammad Mossadegh, because he was going to nationalize the oil industry and stop giving it to the West, and he was going to make his people in Iran rich. What a wacky idea. Give people their own natural resources so that they're prosperous, as opposed to the West just taking it. So what do? The CIA toppled him and put in the Shah, a dictator, and we just kept stealing the oil. So this idea that, like, well, you know how they are. They're these crazy fucks who are uber religious, and therefore they can't be trusted, and they're not good people like us Westerners who've never done anything wrong in this situation. Please, we overthrew their government because they wanted to keep their own goddamn oil. Can anybody defend that? Can anybody argue for a second that, the U.S. motives and Israel's motives in this conversation and in this situation they're purely, we're just trying to keep world security and world peace. This has nothing to do with domination and control and geopolitical strength and things like that. No, nothing to do with that. Nothing to do with that at all. It's all because we're the pure good guys, they're the pure bad guys, and we just need to do the right thing by stopping them from getting a weapon. Look, they're not going to get a weapon. They said they don't want to get a weapon. And all we have right now is Netanyahu, a right-wing warmonger, lying to try to make the problem worse and to try to assert control and dominance over them and to threaten them. You have to remember, the Likud party and Netanyahu, these guys are neoconservatives is what they are. And it shows, the speech that Netanyahu gave was comical. Everything was fearmonger over Iran. Fearmonger, be afraid. I'll use the same fucking talking points I used in 2012, and none of them were true then, and none of them are true now. To look at what Netanyahu said in this speech and come away with the idea that he somehow means well and that he's protecting the West, wrong. Netanyahu is the guy who's making America and Israel less safe. Because his constant warmongering, and make no mistake about it, he really wants to attack. He really wants to bomb. And what's that going to do? It's going to destabilize the region. And, of course, we're going to make it so that the people of Israel are less safe. They're going to be a bigger target. And, of course, America would be dragged into the conflict if that happens. And they're playing with fire, man. They're playing with fire. And at the same time this is going on, we have somebody in the region, a group in the region, ISIS, that essentially unites all of us. But instead of taking that as an opportunity to do diplomatic negotiations and come to a permanent peace deal, what does Netanyahu do? He warmongers. Why? Because it's in his DNA, just like it was in George W. Bush's DNA, just like it's in Donald Rumsfeld's and Dick Cheney's and Paul Wolfowitz's DNA. It's who they are. And it's not just me that's saying it, it's his own quotes and the evidence from the IAEA that proves it.